Why am I making this video? Because I don't want you to make the same mistake I did. After I had retrieved everything I wanted from the end, I stopped playing in this world for about a month. So 1.18 was released before Daisy and I could reunite with our crew in the desert village, and return to spawn to set up the map wall of this journey. I knew that some of the new biomes would spawn powdered snow, the new block which can trap and freeze players and mobs to death, but I thought they only occurred at higher elevations. Unfortunately, I was wrong. We were about halfway home when Daisy froze to death. In retrospect, it shouldn't have happened, but I was feeling tired that night, and at other points on the way back to spawn, there were places where there would be a really cold biome surrounded by warm biomes on both sides. So, since I wasn't paying close enough attention to my map, I didn't process that the snow was the new terrain and I was supposed to continue through the birch forest, until it was too late. And just as Daisy and I started to sink, a family member needed my help with something, so I had to save and exit the game. This is probably the point at which I should have copied the world in case things went south, but I thought it would be fine. Except when I loaded the world again, Daisy was immediately taking damage. I tried to ride Daisy out of the snow, but in addition to not being able to jump in powdered snow, the controller I was using at the time had recently developed some really bad stick drift, so that was making it incredibly difficult to navigate. When I realized that wouldn't work, I frantically tried to punch enough snow to make sure Daisy wouldn't freeze. In my panic, I forgot that I had my shovel in my inventory, but it was all for nothing. To say that I was angry would be an understatement. I was halfway home, so I tried to continue on. But as I fell through a hole in the ground, all I could think as I wallowed in self-pity was, I deserve this. It also didn't help that this song started right when Daisy died, so now it's permanently etched in my brain that this is the sad song of death. After walking for a few minutes, I found another horse, but it didn't like me immediately like Daisy had. It could jump well like Daisy, and it was faster than her. Well, I'll be able to get back to spawn faster, I thought, but even though it was taking less time to travel homeward with Rose than it would have with Daisy, I could feel my motivation for finishing this series slip away. As much as I like to tell myself that I am a logical, rational person, the truth is that I am very sentimental. I think the turning point came when I realized that when we met up with Lily, Berry, Allium, and Dandelion in the desert village, Daisy wouldn't be there. And when we passed the 3 white sheep near spawn, Daisy wouldn't be there. And when I set up the map wall for this journey, Daisy wouldn't be there. But what was I going to do? If you've opened a pre-1.18 world in 1.18 Minecraft, you know that the game asks you if you want to make a backup. This is because they don't want people to lose their worlds if something ends up going terribly wrong in the process. Since I do not trust technology, I made a backup. So there was a save file where Daisy was alive and well, but we would both be back at the end portal. Would I really be willing to give up all of that progress towards going home for one Minecraft horse? Yes. But I don't want you to get the wrong idea about who I am, okay? I am a descendant of farmers and hunters. I understand that sometimes you need to thin the herd. So I use sharpness and power 5 and practice my crits to make it as quick and painless as possible. Using random llamas or horses that just spawned in to get leather does not faze me. Using cows yields a lot of raw beef. So unless I have a dog to feed it to or a butcher to trade it with, the raw beef just ends up sitting in a chest or barrel somewhere unused. And while meat doesn't spoil in Minecraft, it still feels wasteful. Besides, if Mojang didn't want me to use llamas and horses in this way, they shouldn't have made llamas and horses drop leather. I mean, axolotls drop nothing other than experience. Just saying. But Daisy wasn't a random Minecraft horse. We had traveled over 200,000 blocks together. That's about 127 miles. She was my horse, and I was going to get her back. However, I was concerned that you, the audience, would feel cheated by me just reverting to this previous save file. I know I feel frustrated when pieces of media just randomly kill off characters for shock value, and then bring them back like nothing happened. I even talked it over with some of my IRL friends. I think our consensus was that so long as this is kept as a one-time thing, it will be okay. Besides, the only reason I even considered this is because Minecraft Minecraft made a backup for me because of 1.18. But then why am I making this video? I could have just not told anyone and kept Daisy's death a secret. I could have loaded up the old save file and just acted like that was the only attempt to get home. However, recording the failed attempt to get home did take time, so I didn't want to just delete all of that footage. Also, honesty is kind of important to me, and I figured that if I didn't realize that powdered snow could generate at this low of a Y value, there's probably other players who didn't realize that either. What makes me really frustrated about this is I had recently seen someone else say you can tell that powdered snow looks slightly different from regular snow, so you should be able to tell the difference. But like I said, I was tired, and when you're tired you make mistakes. And if you're like me, you probably play games to relax and unwind after a stressful day of doing whatever it is you do, and that means you're probably at least a little tired when you sit down to play some Minecraft. So while I understand that diamond, iron, and gold armor can look cool and provide your horse with more protection if it's being attacked, I ask you to please consider using leather horse armor so your horse doesn't meet the same end as Daisy did in the original save file. On the plus side, you can dye leather horse armor, so that gives you more options to decorate your horse. This series will continue using the backup save file. Until next time, take care.